Today, we're going to talk about adoption with interracial components. I know for me, it's been a huge blessing to my family. And I want to talk a little bit about what that's like, the obstacles that come with that, and the just devotion to cultural diversity, expanding our knowledge base as we continue to go through life, parenting and supporting children of different races, different cultures, and different belief systems. My name is Brooke Fremouw. I am an adoptive mom to 11 kids. I've got kids both through domestic adoption as well as international children. I have kids that came through birth parent placement as well as children that came through the foster care system. So a little bit of everything. And at the end of the day, I learned that I really had to learn a whole lot more in order to be able to adequately meet the needs of my children. So for the past 17 years, I've been learning how to do it different, how to do it better. And as a certified trauma support specialist, my specialty is now going into adoptive homes, maybe like yours, and helping to exchange the chaos that's in those hearts and homes for peace. So if that sounds like something that you need, go ahead and click subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the informational videos that are currently in production. And let me know what kind of topics in the comments you would like to see me create in the upcoming videos. So thank you for your input. I will be certain to take all of that into consideration and then produce things that actually speak to what it is that you guys are needing. So let's get down to it. International adoption, or just having multiracial, multi-religion, multi-ethnic families. So in my case, I have children that are Caucasian with an Irish background. I have got children that are Hispanic and Caucasian. And I've got children that are Hispanic and Native American. And then lastly, I have children that are Ethiopian. And if you are at all knowledgeable about Ethiopia, you know that there are a lot of tribes in Ethiopia, over 80 tribes, and there are several different states and regions. And so cultural diversity isn't just that my kids are Ethiopian, but even amongst the Ethiopians, there's diversity within that group, right? And so how do we do that? How do we take so many differences and allow those to still be things that we can cherish and celebrate and be a basis of unity and embracing differences within our household? So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today, and especially in the United States right now, talking about racial differences is a hot button. And here's the thing, I'm white. Yeah, I'm white. And so I don't know what it's like to be one of my Black sons. I don't know what it's like to walk as a Native American in a culture where Native Americans, they were brutalized, right? And they were definitely put into reservations in order that the white could have their way. And here's the thing, I don't know what it's like to be Hispanic either. Every one of the cultural differences that exists within our household, they are differences. And as a mom, I have to look at that with compassion, intrigue, a level of curiosity, right? And then overall, being open to hearing the interpretation amongst each one of my children as to what that means to them. I cannot profess to be a diversity expert. I am not. I cannot profess anything in the realm of truly understanding what it's like other than to be me, right? And that's true for all of us, whether it's over racial, religion, sexual orientation, different age group populations. We don't know what it's like to walk in another person's shoes. And at the same time, I should be allowed to be proud of my heritage at the same time as my children are proud of their heritage. And are there pieces and sections of each of our heritage that we could look back and go, wow, there were atrocities that existed. Wow, I am so embarrassed and ashamed of the ways in which some of my people group chose to go about life. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is true, and that is the case. And so learning to understand interpretation, understand the facts as they are, not as they're presented, but as they are from both sides, I think is a critical element to that. What does it look like in a daily life of our family in which we've got all of these things crossing over? I can tell you this. I want my children to not assume poorly about anybody. I want my children to assume that this world is going to meet them with opportunities when they show up ready for opportunities. I want my children to think the best of themselves and the best of others. And does that mean that that's what they're going to get? No. It's not what I get. And even more so when I've got my Black kids living in an inner city, it's probably not always what they're going to get. But the reality is that I want to support my children in how to be their best selves, regardless of whether the world receives them or rejects them. Adopted children have a lot of layers of rejection. They've gone through a lot that goes far beyond even their racial differences, right? They've lost the fundamental attachment of a biological mother for one reason or another, and that wound is a gaping wound that cannot be underestimated. We bring them into our home where, I gotta tell you, one of my favorite foods, my brother actually sent me an email not long ago. It was like, I need the recipe for this from when we were kids. It was a Jell-O salad. It was an orange Jell-O salad that we called Grandma Redding salad because Grandma Redding was the one that initially started serving it in her family. And so we're talking about my great-grandmother's Jell-O salad. It has the canned mandarin oranges in it. It has some pineapple in it. And then there's a fluffy apricot whipped cream kind of a topping that gets spread over the entire Jell-O dish. And then get this, shredded Colby cheese. I know, it sounds awful, it sounds crazy, and it even looks a little weird, but it's just lightly sprinkled over the top. My brother and I loved Grandma Redding salad. So you can imagine I bring in these children with varying backgrounds, and they look at this salad like, you've got to be out of your mind. That is the craziest thing. And no. Nope, we're not eating that. And so I've had to let go. I've had to let go and know that Grandma Redding salad had its best days, and those days are behind me. And if I make it, it's going to be made for one, and I don't need a whole dish of Grandma Redding salad, right? But in exchange for that, cultural things have come in. I learned that Hispanics have a guy in certain communities and traditionally that sells corn on a stick. Man, that is some delicious corn on a stick. And I would have never known, right? I would have never known the joys that have now taken over our youthful population, right? Takis. But my kids knew about Takis before this generation right now knows about Takis, right? Sobrinos. Is it Sobrinos? Sabrinas? They're like pork rinds that are kind of like spicy. Yep. Right. Had no clue what any of that was. I just had no exposure, right? And there's a bunch of Mexican candies that, wow, it's been really cool to experience that with our kids. And then you look at the food, the Ethiopian food that those kids have brought into my world. Injera. It's a bread, and they don't eat with forks. They eat with this bread, and they kind of sop it up, and they form it perfectly into their hands to where they can take a bite without putting their fingers in their mouth. Somehow, it all gets in there. And they don't spill it all over themselves like I do, right? And they don't have to lick their fingers. They don't even have to stick their fingers in their mouth. It's an art, I'm telling you. But they've been doing it since they were so little. So cool. I get to learn about Burberry, which I don't like because it's spicy. And I get to learn about Fanta Ananas. Fanta Ananas is a pineapple Fanta. And guess what? The Hispanic culture really likes fruity sodas too. They've got strawberry sodas and pineapple sodas and all different flavors. It's incredible when you take so many differences and you celebrate those differences and give the platform for diversity, for trying things. And in that same spirit of, hey, let's not be afraid of trying things. I now have kids that are like, let's go to Indian food. Let's go check that out. Oh my word, look at these ramen shops that are popping up. Look at this South Korean culture influence that's coming our way. And rather than being judgmental or critical around any of it, they're excited and curious. And so we try the ramen and we try these. I don't know if you guys have seen these. My kids were like, let's try it. Of course, let's do that. Let's celebrate each other's differences. There's a Japanese, I believe, forgive me if I'm wrong, it might be Korean or Chinese. It's an Asian soda of some kind. And when you pop the top, a glass marble falls in to an area and kind of seals the soda bottle from the inside. And so instead of a lid on the soda bottle, you have a marble. And so it can tip over, but as long as it's not tipped over, it's sealed. But tip it over, the glass marble rolls to the top of the bottle, and you've spilled. So a lid's a little more effective, but how cool? Like, how cool is that? And then it seeps into everything from music to dancing to religious backgrounds and to cultural differences. Ethiopian children that are raised with a Christian heritage, those children are taught that dancing is not okay unless you are dancing to worship music. That was a very foreign concept to me. And their translation of the scripture, Ethiopians only have 100,000 words to draw off of, where the English culture has over 1 million words in our vocabulary bank. And so what was in scripture translated for us in one way is translated very rudimentarily for them. And so we get to have those conversations about, how do you feel about dance? Do you feel as though that is pleasing or displeasing to the Lord, and why? And we get to be okay with having differences, right? In the Hispanic culture, birthday parties are so big and so cool, right? And birthday parties didn't even exist for my Ethiopian children. So it's just learning to look at backgrounds, look at differences, and say, can you tell me more? How can I support you in what matters the most to you about that? Coffee ceremonies. It's more than coffee, guys. It is a cultural experience of celebration and sharing. And so I got an Ethiopian coffee set. And it's called a jebena. It's like a special coffee pot, right? And you serve in these little tiny cups. And you do 3 rounds of serving of this coffee, continuing to bring it to a weaker state all along the way. And again, it's meaningful in its purpose. And so we get to have some of the traditional foods that I had as a kid. We get to try new foods that my kids now strongly look forward to. I got to ditch the stuffing because I was never a stuffings girl anyway, right? And we get to end with some really fantastic Ethiopian coffee ceremony. So I'm not saying I've got it all figured out. What we do is probably not perfect. And some of you may say, wow, you don't even almost get the struggles and the obstacles that your kids get when they get out of the home, the things that they face. And to that I would say, you're right. And you're not. It's both. Have a relationship with my children to where I can say to them, hey, what's that like for you when you go into a convenience store? Do you ever feel the way that I've heard some people feel? And I get to receive feedback about the ways in which, yeah, maybe, but Mom, I don't care because I know who I am. Or alternatives to that where it's like, yeah, it really sucks to be stigmatized, Mom. I'm not going to let it stop me, but it's so wrong and it's so unfair. And I hate it for my kids. I hate it. I really remember times where we would go out and people would come to me right in front of my children and say, are those your real children? I want to be like, yeah, they're super real. They're not even fake. But I know what they were saying. They weren't trying to be hurtful, but it's like, wow, they don't look like you. And yet they're calling you Mom. right? There's actually these two Asian men. I don't know their heritage. I haven't followed it much, but I just saw it the other day on Facebook where these guys are like, yeah, I'm adopted. Don't make it awkward. And they literally use a hashtag, don't make it awkward. Because for them, it's normal and it's beautiful and it's not done without hardship. All adoptions are rooted in hardship and grief and loss and having to move forward with not what they deserved. They deserved a stable, loving, nurturing, biological family. For whatever reason, they didn't get it. So their next best option is to be with me. And I do the best that I can to help them. And you know what? In that process, they love me and they fill my cup over and over and over again. And there are trials from the very beginning all the way through. And I imagine we're going to have trials all the way until the day I go home to Jesus, right? Going to have those trials. But the truth is, we've got each other and we can navigate them together. And we can celebrate our differences, respect places where we simply can't fully understand or agree, and say, hey, it's okay that we don't fully get it. How could I possibly understand what it's like? And they don't have any idea what it's like to be an adoptive mom to 11 kids, and I would never expect them to, right? So rather than trying to make somebody fully understand something that cannot fully understand it, I can empathize, I can sympathize, and I can certainly love unconditionally regardless of. And my hope is that one day society will just embrace one another's differences and love each other anyway. Love each other regardless of what they look like, what their orientations are, what country they came from, where their ancestors came from, what horrific things ancestors may have done to one another. And that we can all look at each other with grace and mercy and set down judgment. That's a hope. Probably not realistic if you go to Ethiopia, right? Like tribe on tribe, there's so much tribal warfare. And it's all about tribal differences. Whether you live in the US or you live in Europe or you live in Ethiopia or you even live in Australia, it's so hard because people can't get out of their own way, right? Okay, that's all I have. If you guys have questions that you'd like to see addressed as it regards to what it's like to have such a multi-ethnic family, I'm happy to answer those for you on an upcoming video. So reach out, let me know. If you guys got benefit out of this, please do give me a like and a thumbs up so that we can get out messages surrounding adoption to more families that are in need of that. And yeah, we'll see you guys here later in the week. Thank you so much for your time. You can check out more details at thetraumamama.com. Check me out also. There's a link for Facebook at the bottom, and we will catch you there. Bye-bye.